I worry sometimes that the way we approach literature is really destructive to creativity. And it becomes more about someone's training, someone's publishing CV, and we forget that there's just something very human and exciting about listening to someone tell a story that is meaningful to them. And so, what if there is a different way of thinking about books and bookmaking and telling stories to each other that does build people up? And it's far more about just two human beings connecting in some way that is meaningful to both of them.
Welcome to Collide, your Center for Research and Innovation podcast.
A podcast to ignite ideas, creativity, and innovation through dialogue and knowledge sharing. So welcome to today's episode. Today we are sitting in our beautiful CRI building, and it's a beautiful day out there. And I have three awesome people here in the studio today. We have our technical support and everything podcast at CRI, Mauricio Rodriguez.
Hello. I'm co-host for the first time.
Today for our episode. I have Andrew Testa here, who is a faculty member at Grenfell. Hello, Andrew. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Welcome. And I have Thomas Halford, who is also a faculty member at Grenfell campus. How are you doing today, Tom?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So you're probably wondering why I have these awesome people here today. And the truth is that I've known Andrew and Tom for a while, but I also have known for about a year that they are spearheading a project called Horseshoe Community Press. And if I say anything wrong that is not true, you please correct me. But I came across their project already after I started working at CRI, and I know that our makerspace has a corner there that has their logo. Would either one of you be interested in telling me a little bit about Horseshoe Community Press?
Sure. I would like to say thank you so much to the CRI for hosting Horseshoe Community Press and giving us that space where we can make books. I think we make use of it a fair bit, and we even get people from the community and people from Grenfell coming down and using the space and using the equipment. So it is excellent for us because otherwise it would be up at Grenfell campus and people wouldn't have the same access to it. So it's actually wonderful that we have that corner there where we can keep our stuff and people can use it. So thank you for that. I think the question was, why Horseshoe?
What is it?
How did it get started? So I think from my perspective, the name derives from a tradition within the English program where either faculty or writers or artists in the community would all get together and play horseshoes. It was at a significant place because Al Pittman's brother, Al Pittman, the great Newfoundland poet, who's since passed away, his brother would host the horseshoe event. So it has been a great time for just creative people in the community to get together and to play horseshoes. So it's a way of honoring that tradition. There's also Horseshoe Literary Press, which Adam Beardsworth has been spearheading for a long time. And so both of those projects started around the same time period, and they've kind of gone in different directions. I think in honoring that tradition and in honoring the community of writers and creatives in the Western Newfoundland region, we really wanted to think about creating books as objects that people could enjoy and experience, but doing it in a way where we were hyper-focused on being a part of the community and in trying to get local people published who might very well get published otherwise, but it would potentially be challenging for them. So, to create avenues for local people to either get their career started or to just have one book published and that's it, right? I think that that's how things sort of got started, and that's partially why it's named Horseshoe. But I guess we also added the community aspect to it. I don't know if you want to take it from there, Andrew.
Yeah. I think when I think back to where we began on this, I think a lot of the conversations that you and I originally had was about how do we remove barriers for our local community members to kind of access the world of publishing, where those barriers might be restrictive, or there's gatekeeping, or there's all these various things around, and looking to the writing group at the library as kind of a starting point for that, where we published our first two authors, the writing group, Mervyn Dean and Doris Butt. And I think there was a lot of excitement about what it meant to kind of work through the professionalism of what it means to publish, but in a way where it's very much from kind of a grassroots community kind of trajectory. And I think that goes through not only the writing and working with local writers, but also from the perspective of how we make the book. So the books in and of themselves are, like Tom mentioned, they're objects to be held, and kind of very thoughtful of what it means to be a book. And they use recycled material that is made into paper for our covers, and that's done by Leslie Lundrigan of Purple Butterfly Paper Making. So all of our covers are locally made through recycled paper from the Grenfell community. We often are able to hire students to help us out and teach folks how to make books through the act of producing the kind of editions for these books as well. And I think from an extension of that is also thinking about this kind of publishing house as a way of sharing knowledge with our community too. So it's not just about those couple of people that we've had the privilege of being able to publish so far, but also we've hosted a number of workshops on how to make books. So that way, if folks are interested in publishing their own, they don't have to wait for anyone else to give them permission to do so. But we're trying to build the skill sets with individuals in the community to know that they can do this on their own. And I think going back to your original mention of it's so important for us to be here at CRI, I think the fact that it is accessible to community and community can come and use this, the materials that we have there and the equipment, I think lends itself to that. And I think there's a lot of growth opportunity within that.
Right. And as somebody who's here most of the time, we often give tours to people. And whenever I take people to that corner, there's always that comment of, I've always wanted to make a book or publish a book or write my stories or my community stories. So that being there already does some of that engagement. And I know you did a workshop last fall. I believe it was after September, on really how do you make a book. And I know you engaged children, and that was incredibly valuable. And I can tell you from a personal experience, my son worked on a book with my partner, and I think Tom, he remembers you because you helped him put that book together. And he gave the words to my partner, and we wrote them, and he drew the pictures, and that's one of his favorite books to read at night.
Oh, good.
And it's just a simple story. And he actually got his cousins making books at home and doing, the book is called The Little Girl. And he's written The Little Girl the Little Girl Part 2 and Part 3. And it's, just part of an opportunity for him to express himself. And that's something he's learned from you. So on a personal level, it has touched me particularly.
That's great to hear.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like if I wasn't doing this, I would want to be teaching kindergarten or something. I really do enjoy those types of interactions. I think just to touch on what you were saying, I wonder if people feel somewhat mystified by book production. You go to Kohl's or Chapters or wherever, and you see all of these glossy texts with great authors, and the design seems really complicated, and you think, geez, I could never do that.
Right.
And then once you start making books, you figure out that it's actually really simple. You have to be able to fold and cut and staple, and you can make a pretty nice looking book. I think what Andrew does is he does elevate it to a higher level where the books do become art objects. But I also think that there's something wonderful in the workshops that we do. Anybody can make a book, and anybody can make a really cool book that means more to them than some cheap $10 paperback, right? That you read and then you throw it aside.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think that those workshops are really meaningful and just sort of eye-opening to people in terms of it's actually really easy to make a book.
Right.
I mean, it's difficult to make an art object, but it's easy to make a book.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
And I think it opens that possibility to communicate and to create, to have that creative outlet. So talking about that idea of creating a work of art, I want to talk a little bit about you guys individually. I know, Andrew, you're a fine arts professor and you have a particular specialty. I want you to tell me a little bit about how you bring who you are as an artist, as a faculty member, into Horseshoe Community Press.
So at Grenville, I teach printmaking, and I think from a historical perspective in printmaking, there's a lot of parallels to bookmaking, where the first instances of the press in the 15th century is kind of where the ability to print multiples kind of began. And there's within my kind of my teaching practice, a lot of what I think about when it comes to printmaking is how printmaking introduces accessibility in various ways, where to create one thing of something, it becomes this one-off copy that can only exist in that one instance. But to print and make multiples, all of a sudden that can coexist in different spaces at different times. And there's this incredible amount of value in the ability to reproduce something in that capacity, where it's not necessarily reproducing from like a capitalist perspective of like, I'm reproducing to make more money from it, but rather thinking about it from a knowledge sharing perspective and an experience perspective. So I think that the history of print is something that comes to me through kind of what we do at Horseshoe Community Press, because it allows me to kind of call upon that history. And I think to extend on that, I think within my own practice, I think a lot about accessibility within art practices, and from a printmaking perspective, although there's a lot of access that lends itself to printmaking is intrinsically kind of this, it's an equipment-driven medium that requires certain space and specialized equipment, and that creates this kind of uphill battle sometimes to access those spaces. And oftentimes when it comes to public printmaking facilities, they exist in the largest city centers of those particular areas. So in Newfoundland and Labrador, our only publicly accessible print center is in St. John's. So for me, within my own research and being here in Corner Brook and thinking about what it means to make printmaking accessible, I do projects like Print Shop in a Box, where we printed 3D printing presses before CRI came out, when it was just a maker space at Grenville in an office there. And we printed those 3D presses and included everything that a group of up to 24 people needed to make a relief print and mail them across Newfoundland and Labrador. I think one even made its way to Korea as well as the UK. And then I do Print Shop in Tow, which is where I have a fully functioning printmaking press, and I tow it behind me on kind of this DIY hiking trailer I built to bring printmaking to the park or to wherever I want to kind of bring it at the time, and just set up shop and kind of look a little odd in what I'm doing, and it usually entices folks to come out and kind of make with me. So I think a lot of what that is how do you make it something that feels accessible, inclusive, and like how do you entice curiosity? And I think when it comes to thinking about Horseshoe Community Press and the workshops we do, but also just the objects that we make, and Tom was talking about, like, they are beautiful art objects. There's something when you feel the books that are being made, they are very much made by hand, and you can feel and see that they're made by hand. And there's something that drives curiosity in that. And I think that's one of the parts that becomes really inviting to learn how to make your own book, which is different than going to the box store and seeing kind of these mass-produced books where there's a layer of kind of, you can't do this, so don't even bother. Whereas here, you pick it up and you're like, oh, staples are holding this together, or a string is holding this together, or I understand how to put this together. And there's something really, it's just lovely as a way to create an invitation to do those things, regardless if it's for the author that we're publishing or for the reader or for the workshop participant. Just so as an extension of what I do within my own research, is finding ways to be accessible and inclusive and create that kind of excitement and curiosity around making and what it means to kind of participate in making stories like The Little Girl in volumes 1, 2, and 3. Like, I think those things are really exciting and continues to kind of drive these types of activities for sure.
Yeah, it's really great to see how you're bringing your work as an artist, as a professor, as a researcher, and your practice to the community, and literally to places, like to places that connect with people, and it's really great to see that. Now, Tom, you are a man of the word, right? You work with English language, you teach English. So tell me about how you bring who you are, I guess, as a researcher, professor, artist yourself as well. Like, how do you bring all of that into Horseshoe Community Press?
Yeah. My research is distinct, I think, from this. I do research in contemporary literature and surveillance.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I think it's distinct from this. But I guess what happened for me was I always felt like at Grenfell and at other universities, we have access to so much money, just to be blunt about it. We have and resources. And we're supposed to be community minded, and we're supposed to take our skills and our abilities and contribute to the community in some way, and hopefully more of a grassroots type of thing rather than a top-down type of thing. So I worry sometimes at universities that maybe our research ends up trying to tell people, community people, how they should go about doing whatever it is they want to do. And rather than that being some kind of a shared conversation, or rather than trying to build people up in the community, we're essentially sort of looking down on them in some way. And maybe that's too abstract. So what I really wanted to do was to try to create some sort of avenue where people in the community would be able to express themselves in a way that they found meaningful. And I think looking at some of the box stores, looking at Canadian literature by and large, how it's run through this massive prize system and this sort of like, it's not necessarily the best way of thinking about literature. And I wanted a different way of thinking about literature. And so to me, thinking about literature from the community's perspective, thinking about writers groups who aren't necessarily going to be trying to win the Giller Prize anytime soon. Some of them could. I just wanted a different way of trying to allow people who would normally be on the fringe to be at the center in some way, and to create some sort of a situation where I would be listening to them, I would be reading their work, and I would be trying to push their interests forward rather than my own interests forward. So it's not exactly connected to my research. It's slightly moving in a different direction. But since I have started to do this work with Andrew, I have begun researching things like paper making, things like community presses and small presses, and thinking about how they work. So I guess that's the best I can do in terms of a connection between the scholarship and this type of work.
Yes.
It's probably two separate things, but maybe there are some links.
Yes. Well, I see that you bring your, just helping somebody come up with words, or to find words to express what they're thinking and what their sort of creativity is, brewing in their heads. So I've seen you do that with people, with my son, for example, just how do you create and how do you put words to your ideas? So,
yeah, I feel so much joy when I get to interact with people and they're finding ways of expressing themselves in a productive and meaningful way. I worry sometimes that the way we approach literature is really destructive to creativity, and it becomes more about someone's training, someone's publishing CV, someone's ability to be of a particular moment, whatever is trendy in that particular moment. And we forget that there's just something very human and exciting about listening to someone tell a story that is meaningful to them, and maybe it's not the best story ever, but it means something. And I think we really lose sight of that in the way that we tend to do literature in Canada. And so what if there is a different way of thinking about books and bookmaking and telling stories to each other that does build people up and doesn't necessarily require that you are trained in any particular way or have a certain number of publications. And it's far more about just two human beings connecting in some way that is meaningful to both of them.
And you both have mentioned how important it is for people to be able to reach these resources, right? And I like to know if you could advise to our audience how to start. Because sometimes you don't start because it's scary, because you think like, oh, being an artist requires a lot of training, as you just said. So what would be an advice, in your case, Tom, for example, to start writing?
Make it fun. Just don't worry about sounding how you think you should sound. Find an author who you really like to read and see how they write. See if you can write a story like them. One thing that I would say that is uncomfortable or difficult is you really have to share your writing. Until you start sharing your work with other people, I don't think that you fully understand whether or not you really like writing. Journals are great for just getting started. I think journals are almost an essential thing to get you beginning to write, and you have to be okay with failing. I think even if you've been writing for 20 years, you're going to fail consistently. Like maybe 5% of what you write is going to be good, and the rest of it is not going to necessarily be great. I'm not saying it's going to be bad, but you have to be so open to failing and so forgetful of all of the mistakes that you make. Like you can be bashful, you can be embarrassed, and then you have to move on from it. And you also have to accept, if you want to write, I'm sure it's similar for making art, you have to accept that there's going to be good days and bad days, and some days you're going to produce a lot, some days you're not going to produce very much. Some days you're going to be writing something and you're thinking, wow, this is amazing, and then you share it with someone and you find out, oh no, that's horrible. So I think all of those things are important to keep in mind, and it's just you find something that you like doing, and whatever it is that you like doing, you just have to keep doing it if you want to be good at it. But maybe your goal isn't to be good at it. Maybe your goal is just to do the thing. You just want to write, and that's it. So I think if you want, I mean, this is going to sound stupid, but if you want to write, you should just write and just keep writing. It's like if you want to walk, you should walk and keep walking.
Yeah, you don't have to do it like in a competition or something.
Yeah.
You just walk.
Just do it. Just do it.
And the same is with art and with writing.
Yeah.
Right? Like you should not care about what others will say, but what you're trying to express, right?
Yeah.
And I think that comes with visual arts too. Or what do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, I think when it comes to starting to make in some capacity, I think the two things for me as like a starting point is, one, how important it is to find a community, and that seems similar to writing, where when you have a community, you can bounce ideas off of one another. You can actively learn from one another. There's so much knowledge sharing that happens when you kind of thinking about the title of this podcast of colliding. There's when you come together and parallel work with one another, or just see what others are up to. There's so many new ways to think and to get excited about what that looks like from various perspectives. And I think being in a place with others doing creative things, whether it's writing or drawing or printing or whatever you're doing, I think it gives you almost permission to be able to do that. And it also, oftentimes for me at least, when one of the reasons why I love teaching in the classroom is and one of the things that I strive to do in my classroom is to make sure that people feel that they have permission to fail, like Tom was saying, and how important it is to fail, because that's where you really learn to grow and learn how to kind of do things differently or do things in a way that makes you really excited. So I feel like finding community is often a challenge for folks. And I think that's, again, thinking about CRI and the DIY nights, the Woodworkers Guild that we're going to have coming up, the workshops that you all do. I think those things are so integral to the community, especially as kind of these free instances where people can just kind of come and share those opportunities, is integral to kind of that space of creativity, wherever it kind of leads you. And I think the other thing, if you don't know where that community is, or it's hard to find that community, because that is a really tough thing. I know even for myself as someone who's kind of moved across provinces for teaching jobs, and even though you're a part of a university in those instances, finding community outside of a university is sometimes really challenging. So it's it's not always there at your fingertips, or maybe it is there, but you don't know how to look for it. So in the instances where maybe it's not as available as you might realize, it's just giving it a go. And I think one of the things that we have a really hard time doing is thinking about that notion of good, it's the good is only a kind of a perspective that you're placing upon yourself. And it's not really about being good at something. It's about enjoying what you're doing. And sometimes we have these expectations that we have to be good to enjoy what we're doing. But a lot of the times it has nothing to do with anything that we're doing, because it's more about kind of doing it for the purposes of expressing yourself. Sometimes those are good feelings. Sometimes those are feelings that you want to kind of get out in certain ways. And I think having a creative output allows you to kind of do that. And when you remove that expectation of what is good, and you just start making kind of in order to kind of to express, I think there's a lot of excitement within that. And then from there, there's a lot of room to grow in various ways, whether it is for like, I want to publish, or I want to make this for these various things, or maybe it's just more about, I want to write or draw or print because it feels good to do so. And I think in saying that too, there's a lot of, especially with like things like Instagram and whatnot, there's a lot of expectations that we have to always be doing the best in all these things. So I think sometimes even if you are on your own or a part of a community and you look outward too much at kind of what exists online, and kind of the prizes that exist in literature, as well as kind of how artists run centers and galleries, kind of who they're showing and why they're showing. I think there's a lot of these external pressures that get put back onto us, and they sometimes become paralyzing. So again, that kind of goes back to why it's so important to find kind of community around you to kind of help support you through that, and realize that that's not everyone's idea of success. And you have to figure out what success means for yourself when you're working through those things. And sometimes it's just being able to draw, or being able to write, or doing whatever it is.
So, what is, or I guess my next question is, what's coming up? So if somebody who's listening wants to get involved, or they want to come and check it out, what is coming up for Horseshoe Community Press over the summer? Or after the summer?
I think in the fall, we're probably going to start. We have one author who we're reading their work, and we're really interested in what they're doing. I don't want to say their name, but they know who they are. And then we have another author who I haven't told Andrew about, who seems really promising. And I'm gonna send the word file to Andrew for that, and we're gonna look at that one. So maybe two books next year. Robert Hengeveld and I have been working on another book called Buoys and Markers, which we're actually hoping to use the space tomorrow to finish making the rest of those books. So that's happening right now. Buoys and Markers is a slightly different book than what we've been doing in the past. It's more of a experimental book about garbage and coastlines, and we are using found materials to construct the book. So we're still in the process of making that one. But Buoys and Markers is slightly different from the other community work we've been doing. So I guess in the future, it's really, we have a plan, we have a mandate, and we're publishing local people, and we're trying to make nice books that have a texture to them. And in my mind, that's what we're doing.
And what would be the process for somebody to contact you and be selected to publish with
Oh,
Horseshoe
yeah.
Community
Thank you.
Press?
You want me to answer that one too?
Yeah, go for
I
it.
mean, basically, that you can just email me.
Okay.
You can email me if you're interested, and we'll read what you have sent to us. We publish smaller books, so we publish usually nothing over 48 pages, right? So you would just email me, and then we would read the book, and Andrew and I would have a conversation about it. And if we're interested, then we'll print up to 50 copies, and they'll all be handmade. And then we'll do a book launch and try to sell the books so we can make more books. Basically, that's the plan.
Okay.
And I think one of the things that you and I have talked about in the past was coming up with a way to make that process even more accessible, because it is kind of an informal, like just reaching out to you. And I think there's something lovely about informality. And I think, but it doesn't always work for everyone, because there could be a layer of gatekeeping that is seen if they don't feel familiar with you, or they don't know you, or they don't feel comfortable reaching out. So finding ways that we can also kind of, as we grow as a press and publish more and more, is how can we kind of increase that access in however that may kind of come together. But I think that's something we've chatted about.
Yeah.
And I just got back from parental leave, so we're playing catch up right now. So
Right now,
Yeah.
pretty much everything is run through like our personal Instagram or our personal email. So we probably need to make the step towards creating something that is specifically Horseshoe Community Press, like an Instagram page or a web page or something through the Grenfell page. So that is probably a next step. And then someone in the community who doesn't know Andrew or I, but is a writer and they want to create a book, they would just email that. So, I mean, I think we probably both think of ourselves as being very approachable and not really intimidating, but who knows how other people view us, right? So they might be sort of intimidated about sending us something, or they might be hesitating. But, you know, if anybody does listen to this and they're curious, please don't feel intimidated or hesitate. Just send us an email. I mean, we don't say yes to everything, but we're really more interested in just sort of interacting with people and communicating with people. And if we can find a way of publishing someone, then we tend to want to just do that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the purpose of this podcast. Not only to promote what you're doing, but now people, by hearing you, probably will feel less stressed about sharing something, because they know now that you are, somebody who is in touch with the community, that you are not searching for this like perfect work, that the goals of the Horseshoe Community Press project are more related to community and expression and art. So that's part of why this podcast is important to us, to get people to know who's behind the projects.
And I think something else that I'm sure we'll be doing, again, Tom and I are playing catch up from me coming back on parental leave, but we'll do more workshops.
Yes.
Because that's something that we've been doing almost on a like twice a year kind of basis. And we took a pause over the winter, but I think we'll look to partner with CRI as much as we can to continue offering those workshops, whether sometimes it's really nice to duplicate workshops in the past and give people another opportunity to work through those same practices. And but perhaps there's other kind of things that we can do as well. So whether that's from folks listening who have an idea of what they might want to learn, or an idea that you and I have maybe from a writing perspective first and a making perspective second, that would be kind of cool too. But yeah, so stay on the lookout. I'm sure they'll come through.
That was actually going to be my next question or comment, that inviting people to stay tuned, because we are always looking for opportunities to offer workshops, and I know yours has been very successful in the past. So if people wanted to get in touch with you, how can they do that specifically? So is there an email address or a website or an Instagram account that they can follow?
So this goes back to what Tom was saying. Like, it's our personal email or our work email. So at least mine's Testa@mun.ca, and I'm sure there's going to be a description. We can put that in. Yeah. And Tom's, I'm not going to pretend to know off the top.
It's terrible. It's Z53TAFH@mun.ca.
So Tom has been at MUN for longer than
It's been, I mean, I think I was a student in 2007.
Okay.
So
Too long.
we'll leave it in the description of this
And then-
episode. Yeah.
And I think Tom and I are both on Instagram as well. And I think right now that's where we share socially the things about Horseshoe Community Press. And again, there is a need and want for us to kind of build a Horseshoe Community Press specific. But right now, if folks want to reach out to our Instagrams, and again, we'll put them in the description for later. That's another way. And then stay tuned for, I guess, the launch of a Horseshoe handle of some sort.
Yeah.
That will come
Someday.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you both and thank you, Mauricio, for taking the time to record this podcast today. It has been awesome, and I really, really look forward to seeing what's coming from Horseshoe Community Press.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for coming.
Thanks.
Yep. Thanks for having us.
This has been an episode of Collide, your Center for Research and Innovation podcast.
Generating community and creativity through idea collision.